So, Gaël, welcome. Thank you very much for being with us. Um, so, I would like to start first, if that's okay with the rest of the team, and go with the first question I would like to ask you, which is, what challenges do you think that theater face in making performances more inclusive for people with visual impairments, both as audience but especially as performers, in your experience?
Yes, but that's a good question, of course. I don't know which one are the most striking, but the challenges I encounter in my situation, this is what I can talk about, of course, the best, is, for instance, because I worked with disabled people and making theater performance, but there was not only blind people. There was one or two that had really, one was blind and one other was like very not seeing very well at all. Um, but in general, anyway, is to make something that makes sense for everybody, so because for us we have a conception of like what makes sense or what's important or what's, but then the collaborative process is the most important for me. So to not try to create something for let's say people with disabilities, but with and for, I mean, all these nuances, between like, voilà. So, and also my way of working was also to ask, but I was also working with disabled people, also with mental issues. So the big focus was also to try to create with the participation of these persons. So also on an artistic level, so to be sure that if they have like wishes or stuff that they would like to try or to do on stage, voilà, that it takes the roots of the work was their desires, let's say. And then, yeah, of course, we were also a team of people non-disabled, and we try to complete, let's say, not to direct too much, let's say, because sometimes we have visions of like, this would be super interesting for an audience to see like disabled people in this way or in that way, but it's our conception. And I mean, and also in mental issues, the contrast between yeah, our conception and their conception is even bigger. So yeah, I would say the challenges was this. And for the blind people I work with more specifically, yeah, well, of course there was a lot of practicalities, like this blind performer was always accompanied with by someone, but because also he was also physically handicapped, so it was a double challenge. So voilà, so he was always accompanied, or we would do some stuff that we were in contact physically without holding or like directing the body somewhere, but like being in contact physically in a kind of, let's say, more yeah, movement wise, or like like that included in the theater piece, of course. But so he could turn around, or hear our voices also, like always to pay attention that he hears the voices, then he knows where he is on stage more or less, this kind of stuff. Yeah. And then if I have to think about someone else who I work with, but he also had a kind of a Down syndrome in addition to the non-seeing. So yeah, we were a lot in. I mean, I always try to find strategies to include also the practicalities in the artistic work, let's say, and that it's not hidden, but it's not either put it in the front. We just try to integrate all of this, and it create new, let's say, yeah, ways of creating, maybe, in general.
I see. So the inclusivity part goes mostly with the creative part itself and less with some kind of special technology or some specific method or technique or something like this, I believe. Huh? Is that the case?
Yes, I think in my conception it's the best way to do it. But it's also a little bit these questions of, for instance, you have this relaxed performance, in English. In England, there is a lot of relaxed performance, so they're open for more, let's say, people with like different kind of disabilities, and that's the most adaptable for every kind of audience with stress of any kind of sorts. But then when we discuss about that with theater, for example, because I've been asked to do like some relaxed performance with my shows, and then I say, yeah, but I like it, and I think in a way, all of the performance could be also relaxed, let's say. By doing so, maybe we create also a new kind of like segregation. Like we say, okay, this is a relaxed performance, so it's open for like disabled people. But then why should it be also just this performance accessible for disabled people? I mean, this kind of initiative are very good. I think they're good. They're not bad. It's just that it emphasizes the difference also. And sometimes I think, yeah, we should just more think in general that theater performances should be in general more accessible. And if they ask me to remove for one performance strobe lights or this kind of stuff, that's okay, you can do it. I mean, none is really very necessary, let's say. I mean, like, I don't, it's a vision, I understand. If you're a theater maker and you always work with black and light, of course it's complex to put a bit of light in the audience to make it more accessible or this kind of stuff. But
And actually, guys, excuse me, I will make one more question because it just crossed my mind. Based on the feedback you're already giving us, one obstacle, our main goal, one of the main goals of this whole project of ours, is to improve the possibilities for a blind actor to be employed as a professional actor in professional theater. And from some discussions we had so far, it seems like a big obstacle is the reluctance of the producers, of the theater professionals to include a blind actor in a professional performance. And it seems like there is, a hesitation there, let's say, which is based in a string of factors, um, starting from the imbalance that it may cause between the other actors and how much time each actor would need, on the rehearsals, or to make adaptations, to adjustments to fit the performance for every, let's say, participant. So a big question is how, in your opinion, this issue could be addressed. How we could help, like persuade a producer to be less hesitant to include a blind actor in a professional performance.
well, I think it's I think it creates also, it's very, I think it's creative also. So the big thing is that it can be a very big creative point, in the sense that the people who don't see also have a different vision, because they have a lot their imagination. So I imagine like blind actor can also act in a very different way and in a very rich way, because it's also very mental way of imagining the situation, but also, and then the words also become like very, very strong, I think, for these people. So because it's become strong to them, I think they can also transmit it to the audience, that the strongness of the text of the theater, I mean, of the meaning of the piece also. I mean, in my opinion, I find it really amazing if I could work with also a mixed cast of people, and people blind or with disabilities, but not only, because I really believe in the mix also. Um, that the when you do, and actually you can also you know, sometimes when you mix people, I mean, I've seen performances also with mixed casts, and then what I like also is that at one point you know it because it's written in the program, let's say, but then sometimes you don't really realize for real, and who is who's what, who has disabilities, who don't. So, and this I like a lot because also it talks a lot about appearance, and on the society level, I mean, like the differences we all encounter, you know. And then suddenly that you don't see these differences so much, and then you think also, this person maybe has disability, but actually not, you know. You make mistakes, and then the doubt is coming, and then all these questions of like uncertainties of all these things we're certain of are just like shaked and moved suddenly. And this I find really interesting also, to kind of question all these certainties we have sometimes about what's normal, what's not normal. This kind of this normativity question, I think, is good. So yeah, to mix, I think it's a good it would be a super great deal. There is probably, you know, this theater maker, Sheila de Ferrari.
Yes, I do. Yes, yes.
Yeah, she made this amazing piece, I think. I mean, I haven't seen it, but it looks like amazing with blind people, but I don't know.
Yeah, so it's all about, if I get it right, you know, like uh, getting added value from the disability itself and turn it to a strong point as well, a strong creative point, I believe.
I think it's very rich. Anyway, it's just also another way of considering acting, let's say, or like approaching acting. And I think it's always good to to confront also the different ways. Because I mean, if you put only people who have the same way of acting as actors, even if you don't take people with disabilities, but let's say different background or different, it's always very interesting to have different ways of acting, and then it's just one more way. And then, and yeah, I understand that maybe sometimes about practicalities, some people are like, this is going to be heavy, or like this is going to be more expensive, or this
That's
kind of
what we
stuff,
face a lot, yes.
or the for instance, the time of the creation should be longer, and then it's going to cost more money, and then
Exactly.
most of the time it's a lot about money also. And but I think it's a great value also. So it's, I mean, it's just a point of view to just think different, and be, yeah, maybe it costs a little bit more money, but then maybe you gain a lot much more value about many other stuff, also about human point of view, of course.
Marion, I don't know if you want to, because I could go on for, but I don't want to tire, you know, Gaël as well very much. So if you want to join, to jump in and ask something, otherwise I have a lot to ask.
No, I'm fine. Maybe Honor would like to continue questions we have prepared.
Perhaps I could ask one question. So, hello, first of all.
Hello.
It's nice to have you here today. Thanks for your time. So, since our project has employability side, employability of the blind people, I mean, considering the acting on a, for example, state-funded theater or more industrial acting, we are often, or actors are often asked to have some specific training and some predetermined way of acting, you know, something in borders. Even though acting is is a form of art, while we consider actors in a stage, on a stage, we are expecting some, you know, how to put it, an expected acting,
Yeah.
an expected way of acting. So, due to the nature of blindness, blind people have a difficulty in finding their way, putting themselves on a stage. And, you know, this is a significant pillar of acting also. Having the eye contact, knowing your place, you know.
Yeah.
So, but how I view is there is no perfect way of acting. And I completely agree with you that even though they don't see, it is an unexplored area of how blind people can actually act. So in order to put blind people into on quote regular acting, I think at some point we need to start with some changes in this perspective. So during our interviews and internal meetings, for example, we came up with this idea that why blind people are not playing blind characters already. It exists in the classic plays, like classic Shakespearean plays, for example. There are numerous blind characters. It could be a start to include blind people to play in regular, on quote, regular acting. So from this perspective, what other action could be taken to include blind people? Because when we try to include blind people, as you mentioned earlier, it's still a little exclusive, even though we try to include them. So playing in mixed groups, I think, is a perfect way to include blind people in regular acting as employed actors. So from this perspective, do you have any suggestions, any potential, action to take so that we can include blind people into the acting with, other groups?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends a lot about the, the independence of these people. Like, for instance, a lot of blind people have a lot of, they know how to deal with the everyday life also, kind of well, because they're trained for that. I mean, they adapt. So I think if they are surrounded by a group of actors, it's not so complex to make some adaptation. I think this is a big point also, that maybe that could be said also, that it's not such a big, okay, maybe they need sometimes one person for accompaniment, but not always. I mean, like, and also if the whole company is kind of collectively taking care of this person, is not such a big deal. I mean, like, if you're 5 and you have one person who's blind, then it's totally fine. And I mean, of course, what you said about like acting blind characters, interpreting blind characters, of course, is a good first step. But I mean, in my opinion, they could interpret like whatever characters. I mean, that it's even more interesting when it's something that it's not supposed to. But it's also my vision of like making theater is like also crossing some boundaries, and like some, I like the idea of also of like taking a bit more risk, let's say, and just make some attempt yeah. I mean, the idea of like mixing should play what. I mean, I think it's always very interesting also, like, to just mix a little bit the lines and not be just like very like it should be, in a world of like perfection or of as I said before, like normativity. I think it's really interesting to just try different, to go for difference. I mean, I think it's really great. But I don't know how to convince. I have the impression there is a lot more also happening now for disabilities in general. I mean, there is in many theaters a lot of focus on like this kind of work also, or the work who's kind of more inclusive in general. So I tend to hope that it will be more in development, let's say. I hope. I don't know if it's the truth. It's just like I have the impression, because also I get called much more, I mean, from different institutions in general, but I mean, I just noticed that for me, the blind people on stage, when they don't really look, when they look, for instance, let's say maybe you have the impression they look in the emptiness, but it's super interesting. I mean, to have someone who's acting also not like projecting, the look, and like be overacting because they look too much or they look too intentionally to something or to someone else, or to the audience. I think it's, for me, it's much more touching also that someone to have this kind of maybe awkward presence, but with the text and everything, it can be really nice. I mean, I also work, I'm a little bit of a choreographer also, so I work also a lot about movement. And so with disabled people to have these movements everywhere that are totally contradicted by their disability, for me, it's really a gift, because then it creates something different by itself. I mean, like, without searching for it also. So this awkwardness is not anymore something that you search for, but something that exists. And then it changed totally the point of view on that also, because you take in consideration and then you make something out of it. And I think it's much more interesting. It's also about acceptance. So I think also that if they are more visible in general, then the acceptance in general in the society will be also, let's hope, a bit better. It's also about this representativity. In the sense of, in the situation of blind people that don't see, blind audience may not notice that there is blind actors on stage, but if they know it, it's a way of knowing and acknowledging. So it's already a big thing, I think. Also to allow other blind people to have dreams of becoming an actor, or becoming something that they think maybe it's not accessible to them, or like, so I mean, and I don't know about the blind people, but for disabled people with mental issues and stuff like that, there is also this big question about salaries, because it's difficult to make real contract to them, because of them, a lot of the time they have this
allowances.
how you say,
Yes.
exactly. And then if they get it depends of the country, but like in some countries, if you get one official contract, you lose it completely for life and you cannot renew it. So it's like all these big issues that I encountered.
Great point.
This is a very big issue indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess for
In
blind
several
people it's the
countries.
same.
Yeah, across Europe.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, this is
So
a very
this
good point.
also, I meet a lot of people also that encounter this big issue, because it's one of the biggest, I think. I mean, if you want to get official, then it's good that they have real salaries and stuff like that, like everybody. And then everyone is very confused about that, because everyone has his method and it's always a bit going around the rules, because the rules are not really very clear or very nice in that sense. But we thought actually with few organizations in Brussels that we should actually meet sometimes, because then it also seemed that every little organization deal with this thing in their corner, each one of everybody, and then sometimes to make more a federation, like to kind of federate and organized, and then maybe in that way you can be more powerful and try to act in the level of more laws and government rules and stuff like this. Because if everyone asks in their corner, doesn't have an effect. But if you kind of create a big organization that everyone is fighting in the same direction. So this is some discussions we had with few people here, but it takes a lot of time also to put on, and it's an extra thing to the artistic work. So it's not for tomorrow, but maybe.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of human resources as well, I believe, a lot of time, and and I think that something should be done in a European level, to be honest. But that's another discussion. Yeah, but it's a very
Sure.
good point. This one. I would like to ask one last from my side, last one, because I think most of it, the questions I have noted already are in a way answered already. More than that, to be honest. So it's very, very valuable insight. So our project also deals with the technology part, and we try to to see and to watch out for new technology tools, or in general technologies that could be used to assist with this effort to include the disabled persons and most important for this specific project, blind persons. So another question is if you actually it's two questions in one. If you have experienced some technology tools that were helpful, really helpful in some way to include disabled persons in a performance, and if not, what is your opinion about what do you think about the role that could be played by technology in the creative business in the future for the disabled persons? Would it be to make it clear? My question is, would it worth it to keep looking for technologies? Would it be a key factor for a change, at your opinion, or we should focus on the social part to make the whole society and the creative business more welcoming for this kind of persons and in the creative way as well? So what role you see for the technology part? That's my whole question to wrap it up.
Well, I think I have a kind of specific relation to technology in general, so maybe it might influence my answer. But because I see technology everywhere in our new life. I mean, nowadays, and it's not something that I kind of like so much. I try to fight against sometimes, but it's my thing. Even though I am anyway dealing with technology even in my own work, because I do also subtitling and I do a lot of stuff like this to make it accessible for like deaf people and stuff like this. But I would say it's ambiguous, because why not? Of course, developing all these technologies, we can imagine a lot of tools, I guess. I mean, sometimes I go see performances. They're not per se for blind people, but they are done in a way that everyone is wearing, headphones, and then it allows different things even for people who see, and then, by the way, it make it accessible for like blind people, because they get all the text and the input of the sound and everything directly in the ears, so the imagination is stronger, the sensation is bigger. So what are this kind of immersive work that demands a lot of technology, because everyone has headphones and stuff like this, or like but I can imagine that, of course, you can develop other technologies to be able. I mean, I can imagine that some actors could like wear some stuff that indicates them where they are on stage. I mean, you can fantasize on like how technology could go really, really far. But yeah, I also think the analog way also, like more finding strategies without technology to kind of make all of this possible is also very good. To depend not on technology, I think, is also a very good, but then it creates more a sensation of like acceptance of all this let's say difficulties. But no, I don't know. I'm very double on that point. But I'm not saying technology is not, there is a future in it for sure. If some people want to invest, for sure they will find stuff and it will be used, I'm sure. But in France, for instance, I know also there is a lot of dance shows that are actually like made in audio description for blind people. And that's a really, really big challenge, because how do you describe dance and contemporary dance and like abstract dance and stuff? But some people do it very well, actually. They're really specialists. And they do it live also. So it's kind of creates something interesting also for people that are not blind, because they also get to hear the text, but they get to see at the same time. So it's like, yeah, I think it's interesting, and this is not very difficult to do. It's more like human resource, let's say, but.
True. Nice. So, from my side, guys, I don't know, Marianne, if you are covered. I'm more than covered,
We are
actually, for the time
it was
being.
super valuable feedback. Thank you so much, Gaël.
Thank you
My
so
pleasure.
much. Thank you so much. I don't know if you, Gaël, wanted to add something, or if we forgot to ask you something important that you can think of as being helpful with our project. But if you want to add something, of course, feel free. But from my side, with the questions, I'm done.
No, thank you. I'm good. It was really nice, nice questions and stuff. And I always like to talk about that, so that's no problem.
Thank you.
And
So
it
much.
makes
Good.
think about other stuff while I'm talking also. So no, it's great. Always nice to, how you say, brainstorm about all of this, because then when you express it again, you also find something. Yeah, I didn't think about it, or like always new things to think about. So it's infinite. So.
Exactly.
And yeah, about this audio description, I think, I mean, I know, I've never seen it, but I always heard it's really amazing for these dance performances. I know her, if you want to know who she is. There is a woman specialist in France about that. So.
Well, we'll have to look into it for sure. Because especially with these
Exactly.
dance performances, it's
Yeah.
very.
She's a dancer, of course. At the beginning, she was a dancer, and then she decided to do that.
It sounds crazy interesting, to be honest.
Yeah.
Super.
Thank you so much.
So, yeah.